This is Comic Books This Week. My name is Hannibal Taboo. I'm the head comics reviewer at bleedingcool.com. This is Dr. Stanford Carpenter, noted comics anthropologist. I believe we are recording for the YouTubes, where we'll be sharing this later, and we are very happy to be here with you. Stanford, how we doing this week?
It's been a week.
It has been a week.
I guess that's all I can say about it.
Yeah, that's hard to dodge.
Nah,
So, what are we going to get into this week? Do you want to start with your favorite book, Way of X?
Oh. Damn.
You keep making me read this book. I'm going to have
to. Bitter much?
I would have signed out of this book like 2 issues ago if you were not making me read this book. I swear to God.
I just want to see them. I don't know. I got no excuse. Okay, I just got no excuse. I mean, this episode is again. It's like I felt like I felt like this issue was more focused. It was more focused. It kind of did a good job of saying this is what we're trying to figure out. Which is interrogating, in terms of interrogating the different laws. This is the first time that like in the other 3 issues, they never quite say that that's what's happening. Is that he's, out there trying to, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, he doesn't quite say what he's doing. This is the first time when they say what he's doing. So I got to give them points for that.
It's issue 4.
And I got to give them... And I got to give them... Well, no, I got to give them points for that. I got to give them points for using my favorite caller. I got to give them...
Oh, you're fading out on me a little bit.
Said it still sucks.
All right, well, let me ask you this, Stanford. You're an educator, right?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, gosh. Did you fade out on me again, Stanford?
Hello?
Stanford, I can hear you, but you can't hear me.
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I was like, that was weird. All right, well, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, just for a second there.
That's weird. You're an educator, right? Stanford? Okay.
Right.
Okay, so good. You are okay. I knew the answer,
Yes.
but I was just going with it. So if you had a student that for the first 3 assignments they turned in had no idea what they were doing, and they turned in the 4th assignment, and it was like, oh, I just figured out what I'm supposed to be doing, wouldn't you have some deep, deep, deep concerns about the student?
I would have concerns. But, see, that's not what the relationship is here, right?
That's right, because the students pay you, and you're paying for this.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did that one.
Wow.
Yeah, I did.
Wow,
yeah.
you had to you had to go there.
That was the whole setup. That was the whole setup. That was all I was doing. That was the whole setup.
Well, see, here's something else I'll say. People used to ask me, early on in my research, I was one of the few people doing like this type of comic research. It must be easy reading comics every day, right? And finally, I had to say, I said, well, actually, it's not.
It's
and they're
not.
like, what do you mean? I said, well, I mean, hey, maybe like 25% of the stuff I love. And I said, and there's another 25 to 30% that I don't enjoy at all. And then the rest is just dry data.
Yeah.
And so, and the reason why you read all of it is you have to have a sense of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But also, I mean, I actually found sometimes, especially as an anthropologist, where I'm asking questions about culture, where I'm not really asking, and when you start to look at these characters as their iconicity,
Right.
issues of representation, oftentimes you can actually teach more from a bad book.
I take it that he was going to say from a bad book than you can from a good book. And if that's the case, then I'm sure Way of X #4 had a lot to teach people. But I can't hear him, so I don't know.
You're fading in and out.
You completely dropped off for like from the second you said bad book. After that, there was nothing after that. Hey, what's up?
Okay, well, I
What's up,
was
Erica?
saying, Hey, Erica. So, I was saying that oftentimes you can teach more from a bad book than a good one.
So Way of X number 4 had a lot to teach people.
Yes,
Okay.
this is very educational.
Yeah. Not that's different from entertaining. It's not the same.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
it can be educational. Like a train wreck or a 20-car pileup.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
I mean, if you want to learn about the apocalypse, you got to study people dying.
Wow. That took a turn.
Well, and that it's not an inappropriate term given some of the books that we have this week. So,
It's not. It's not. But yeah, okay. So we both agree that Way of X number 4, still pretty stinky though.
yeah, yeah. It actually, what I think is interesting is it managed to start to address and fix some of the concerns I had about the book, and still not be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because those are things I want to be addressed in a pitch meeting.
Right. And I think that that's what's difficult about this book. I mean, it's got all the elements, but ultimately, something's getting lost in the execution here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of concerns about because it's just driving all over the road. But whatever. All right. So Way of X number 4. We're not here for it. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Taboo, head comics reviewer at bleedingcool.com. What would you like to do next, Stanford? Which way would we like to go next?
Well, you know what? Let's go to something that you got us onto.
Okay.
Seven Secrets.
Oh, Seven Secrets is so evil. I love it so much. Okay. First of all, let's start with Seven Secrets. The Queen of England is a black woman. First of all, let's start there. Let's just put that on the table, walking in the door. And second of all, she's got a gun. And she's really good with it. That's the Queen of freaking England, y'all. And that made me think about the fact that, with Meghan Markle and Archie and whatnot. I remember I actually went through a chart to see how many people had to die for Archie to become king. And I'm not saying I was planning anything or outlining a story, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be mourning a lot. I'm just going to put it out there. So,
Well, I didn't read it that way. I read it as it's not how many people have to die for Archie to become king. It's how many and which royals need to get in relationships with people of color before the whiteness is bred out.
ooh, that's a take. That's a hot take. I like it. It's sizzling.
I mean, and that's the first thing I thought actually because they have the scene later where we see the prime minister and he looks a lot like Boris Johnson. So
Yeah,
I'm
he does.
like, okay, so we know who the citizenry elects, and we also know who the royals are in intimate relationships with.
That's true.
And I actually that is one of the elements I did like about this. I liked how I'm always interested to see how a book addresses diversity, either in the past, present, or in the future. And I think that what's interesting is that is such an obvious way to include diversity because it's in the future. Because we often forget that, or some, at least in comic land, we forget that that you can have white characters today with very black descendants
True
and
story.
very Asian descendants
True
and
story.
very Indian descendants. Like go down the list, right? And you can have black characters with white descendants. So I just thought it was really it's actually one of the simplest ways to do it.
Yeah.
We did see it in DC Comics with Legion, right? Barry Allen's the character Excess is descended from Barry Allen. You know, so I like that.
I like that too, yeah. And what I also appreciate, there's a lot of things I like about Seven Secrets. It's a very well developed continuity. It's a very well developed concept. They've spent a lot of
Yeah,
time making sure they have savvy names for things that are catchy and that work. Holders, seekers. I mean, I really enjoy a lot of that. But another thing they did really that was really interesting this time to me was they spent a little time focusing on what's called the first secret. Earlier on, a few issues ago, the first secret was exposed to the world, basically. And the first secret is a briefcase that if you open it, an entire country blows up. Now, this was the end of Switzerland in this fictional continuity, but what got me this time was like, listen, this isn't the first time that box has been opened. Remember Atlantis, Lemuria? I
Right.
was like, oh, snap! Is that what we gonna do? Oh, so the fact that they use sort of the lingua franca of pop culture and some of the ideas that are already in people's minds and expand on them in ways that they wouldn't have expected, I really, really appreciate that. I think that's super entertaining.
I like that, but I also and I like the way. I don't know. There's a really interesting world that's being built here. I mean, I have to say, as someone who's coming into the book after it's already been going for a couple issues, I'm still having a little trouble following some of the characters and all the names of the characters because there's a lot of characters here.
Yes.
But I find that even in those moments where I can't remember who's who, the writing still shows through and it still flows really well,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's something that's really important is that a comic that is overly reliant on you picking up every detail to follow the plot. I don't think that constitutes good execution. I want to be able to follow the plot. I don't want to feel like I have to to dissect every word because at a certain level it is about entertainment as well,
Yep.
right? And entertainment and dissertation don't.
Oh, there he dropped out on me again. Entertainment and dissertation don't. I wonder what he would say when he comes back.
Entertainment and a dissertation don't go together all that well.
I mean, didn't you do a dissertation on entertainment?
Yes, I did, but
Everybody's not you.
it's a necessary exercise, but a lot of it is not fun.
That's
you
fair.
know,
I could see that. I could
and
see that.
and that's the point. It's like part of the reason why it takes so long to write a dissertation are the details you have to pay attention to.
I hear the devil's in there.
Yep. And so yeah, I mean, I think that's what I love about this book. I love the way it flows.
Yeah.
There's another book that you introduced me to.
Ooh, what's that?
I'm trying to I'm pulling it up right now. It is oh I'm forgetting the exact name. It was the Six Sidekicks.
You know what? That snuck up on me. It did. It's a new image title called "The Six Sidekicks of Trigger." What was his name? I can't remember. Trigger something.
Trigger Keaton.
Trigger Keaton, yeah. And it's about basically this washed-up action star who was the worst. He's sexist, he's misogynistic, he's awful, and someone murdered him. And there were six actors who played his sidekicks throughout his career, and they've come together to solve his murder for reasons even they don't really fully understand sometimes. And this issue really, because the first issue was good. It set the scene pretty well, but I just figured it didn't have enough meat on its bone. This issue, I found myself smiling at so many points that I was like, you know what? I'm really enjoying this. And I have to appreciate the fact that I can walk into something and really just be happy, even though, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's, from a truly logistical standpoint, there's a couple technical storytelling tidbits that I would be like, I'm not so sure about that. But from the start of it to the finish of it, I was happy. I was happy reading it. And that's worth noting.
Well,
You faded out on me, Stanford.
but
There you go.
like you, it snuck up on me because I was when I first saw it, I was ready to curse your name, Hannibal, and now and then by the end, I had to praise you.
That sounds like a lot of my
it's
old
a fun
relationships.
book.
Yeah, I had a reliable relationship going.
But it had some really interesting moments, like just like the whole reading of the will and how the things he leaves people are really shitty,
Yeah,
literally.
it's so bad.
you know, like who stores their own excrement so they can send it to people when they die? I mean, that's some petty ass shit.
You are not wrong. I was reading like, wow, wow, that's really going the extra mile, man. Wow, okay, wow. But I gotta admit,
Yeah.
the car was kind of fly. I was kind of really
Yeah,
into
it
the
was.
car.
Same here.
Yeah, there
You
was a.
know, I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm completely with you. But I also, I mean, the one thing that was a little intimidating at the beginning is when I was reading through it at first was the artwork.
Okay.
And it was intimidating in that the artwork is a style that has like just a lot of like heavy lines in there,
Yes.
and the fact that that he had all these heavy lines and lots of panels.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I first looked at it from afar, it was like it was hard to digest,
Okay.
right? But the story went really well, and one thing that I felt like he did a good job of was economy of words,
Yes.
which is one of my big critiques of a lot of the comics that came out this week
Mm-hmm.
are just so word heavy, and it's words that don't mean anything,
Yeah.
you
That's a
know.
fair. That's fair. Uh huh.
And again, it's like that's one of those things where when you put too many words in there and meaningless words, you end up you're reading and you're searching for the importance, and that's not a good feeling as a reader.
Searching for the importance. That's deep. Wow. He's kind of dropped off on us, so I'll just say this is Comic Books This Week. Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Taboo, head comic reviewer at Bleeding Cool. I'm sure he'll
So
pop in. There he is.
what do you want to do next?
Okay, I gotta just take a quick detour, real quick, because I know you probably didn't see it, but they're doing this thing with Marvel Star Wars books, right? Where they're doing a story set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, where Han Solo's carbonite body is stolen and put on auction, right? And it doesn't change anything that we already know from Return of the Jedi. It just adds a lot of, like a lot of shuffling around of the carbonite slab before it actually ended up with Jabba. And there were two issues of this story this week, which was War of the Bounty Hunters and Dr. Aphra. And at the end of both of those books, literally the only thing that happened is somebody walked in a room and said a sentence to surprise people. Nothing else that happened in those books mattered. And for me, I'm such a soft target for Star Wars books. I was like, it really feels like this should be able to get me more easily, given the characters and given what's happening and the setting and the Imperial period, which is my favorite period of Star Wars. But I just, I felt nothing like that old song in the musical. And I was like, what? What happened to me here? Why? Why is this?
Well, when I read it, something struck me very quickly, which is that one of the well, first of all, I'll say this: I actually love Doctor Aphra because
As a character, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a former archaeologist. Hey, archaeologist in space, you got me right. Not hard, but I was looking at it and I said, this is the thing that's interesting about the Star Wars books, because I used to follow them and then I stopped for a long time, is that they always have really good execution on the art side, right?
True.
And the storytelling is actually pretty.
Oh, he dropped out. The storytelling is pretty something. At least he dropped out on me. I wonder
Because
oh, there we go.
I feel like the stories are lacking. The storytelling's good, but the stories are lacking because they are so hamstrung by that universe, right? It's like,
Okay.
because like in this one, like what you just said, well, everything centers around Han Solo and Carbonite being the MacGuffin. Well, we know what happens to Han Solo and the Carbonite, which gives you a huge clue as to what's going to happen in the room, right? Now that doesn't mean that I didn't like it. Like I actually liked the Dr. Aphra story much more than the Boba Fett story. I liked it because I liked it
I was
for
the
one
opposite.
little. Well, what I liked was one thing that they did, which was they showed Dr. Aphra's her PTSD from being force choked by Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's real.
I thought that was a really interesting touch, because what we never talk about is like what it is like to be choked by an invisible force. Like, what does that do to you? And I was like, yeah, I could see where that would really mess someone up, right?
Yep.
Because you can't breathe, but you don't even know where the force is coming from. Pardon the pun. But I read Aphra first, then I read the Boba Fett one,
That's the right order. I did it wrong.
and it was interesting because I honestly felt like it didn't matter which order I read them in. And I actually felt like you could have just taken the pages and just like interspliced them together and taken out the overlap, and you would have had a better book.
That's fair. Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
they really totally, just kind of Rashomon one little part where you see things from different angles, and I was like, but I didn't need to see things from different angles. I was fine watching them the way I was watching them. But,
Exactly. And I think that that's, like I said, I think that's where you run into that's my problem with Star Wars is all of this, and it's my problem with the movies too. Is this emphasis on everything's a prequel, everything's filling in a hole from another story, and I feel like we lose the.
I can kind of see that. I can kind of see where you're going because I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Star Wars. I can totally
and
see where. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of love for Star Wars too. It's just that like they are so caught up in trying to fill every hole that we have that we're just left with no future.
Title of your sex tape, but yeah, they.
Ooh.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I just saw an ad for Brooklyn Nine-Nine today. I'm sorry, but yeah, I can see that, and I have had some of those concerns because there's room for Dancing in the Raindrops to explain important things. There's a IDW book that is called Weapon of the Jedi, which explains some of how Luke leveled up a little bit before he got to Dagobah, which I was like, oh, okay, that is actually helpful to know. I don't know if it's a book worth me buying it for like $8 for 2 issues or whatever, but it was good to know. It's a good Wikipedia entry. So for here, my problem, the most interesting thing to this story is the thing that they're paying no attention to. That, and I'm going to spoil a little bit here, Crimson Dawn is back, and Crimson Dawn is being run by Kira, who was the entire reason that Han Solo did any of the things that he did, and she's the one who stole and is auctioning him off. And there's an emotional story that's not being told there that I want. I want to know how Kira, who loved him, who felt everything for him, who protected him from Crimson Dawn when he clearly should have died, how she could be doing this and what's her end game, what's her plan, and moreover, how that works out for the galaxy, because Crimson Dawn, as we know, does not go on to be a thing. So this is a very short story, and if it's Kira's story, I'm interested in seeing how it ends because she's had so little room to grow.
Right, I'm with you on that. And that was one of the things that I was wondering too as I read this. But but this is the thing. I mean, the good and bad of the Star Wars books is they always really hit it with the art.
Yep.
So you're always going to have a beautiful story, and you're always going to have good storytelling. It's just that like I said, the stories sometimes the actual stories are hit and miss, and part of it I think is because they're just so hamstrung by existing in a universe between other stories that we already know with characters who there's characters who we know the fate of. It's like when you look at this, you pretty much know who could possibly die, and it's not very many characters.
Yeah.
I
mean, you could kill a lot of the Pikes. You could kill a lot of, the Black Sun. You could kill a lot of the Imperials even. There's a character there named Sly Moore, who is an ambassador of, Palpatine's. And her ending is not written. We know that she probably won't make it past Endor, but
Right.
Up until Endor, well, actually, we don't know that she made it to Endor. So you could whack her and it'd be kind of a thing. But I don't know. I respect where you're coming from. There's a certain amount of prequel lack of danger of plot shielding that a character can have that can be a detriment. And again, for me, I've seen so much Worf effect stuff with who I'll say showed up, Vader. I've seen him, just like walk in and, oh, I'm tough, but you're gonna get away from me because we've got to move this story along. No,
Right.
No, you're Vader. I want you to murder 70% of the people you run into. Just
And
murder.
then we also know that Vader's never going to be defeated.
Well, he actually does in his own book. He actually loses a lot, truthfully.
Well,
It's
yeah,
kind of embarrassing, really. But
right, but lurking over most stories is this idea that you're going to fight and defeat the big bad.
Yeah.
We know that he's not going to be defeated. We know he's a force of nature. We know he's going to always come back.
Yeah.
And I think that to me that's the that's the difficulty of a Star Wars book. But I think we kind of you know let's go on to the next one.
All right, yeah, we're at the halfway mark. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and Hannibal Taboo, head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool. We've discussed some Star Wars books. We've discussed Seven Secrets. We've discussed Way of X. Where will we go next, Stanford?
How about Never Never, so we don't have to ever come back to it again?
I actually forgot to read it, so you can take that one on your own because I completely forgot it existed.
Well, Peter Pan, but he's evil.
Oh, you mean like on Once Upon a Time, the TV show?
Peter Pan, but he's evil.
Yeah, I totally saw that on ABC. I've totally already seen this game. Yeah.
And
Is Tinkerbell evil?
we haven't seen Tinkerbell yet, but it's
Is Wendy
just
evil?
like we haven't seen Wendy yet either. But
Is
but it's
anybody
just,
with a name that would recognize evil? I'm
it's
sorry.
just Peter Pan to
Okay.
get and this girl that he brings in there, and she's in this chaotic place where we're all with all these little like pirate trolls running around they're kind of part zombie because you can cut them up and they're still alive, and it's just I'm. Can we move on, please? I don't ever
We can
want to
move
go
on.
back to
Never,
this.
never. Number one is terrible. So says Stanford, and I have no reason to not believe him. Carry on.
Okay. Well, let's go to one that's marginally better. Die, 18.
Okay. Okay. I need to talk about my frustration with Die. Okay. Die came out, and Die was one of my favorite books because I love Kieran Gillen. I love tabletop role playing games. I love the world building that was happening at first. I was so happy, right? And then at one point, I think he brings in H.P. Lovecraft as a character, and he brings in, all these literary. I'm like, whoa, 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 son, you're getting way too meta for me here now. Whoa, son, let's not do this. And you know what he did? He doubled down on it. I was like, oh man, okay. So, this whole book started with a simple thing with 6 people trying to do a thing. And now that thing is like the last thing from their mind. They're not even interested in that thing anymore. It's like Battlestar Galactica. I'm like, you did not have a plan when you walked in this. You were lying to me. This is not a plan. This is not how plans work.
Well,
Super
and the
frustrating.
other thing is, this is not how good storytelling works.
And he
This
knows
this
better.
this book was of this week the poster child for lots of meaningless words that we didn't need.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
And
we're
fonts.
talking about somebody who's been around for a while, and I thought that was kind of I had a problem with that. I mean, it's just like this would have so benefited from an economy of words, because when
Yeah.
you don't have an economy of words and you've got 6 characters who you have to figure out, who you have to keep track of, and you've got a complicated story where you're going from one state of reality to another state of reality, just give me something.
Just give you something. I can dig it. You really gotta get him better Wi-Fi.
Well, what I said was I just didn't want to get bogged down in meaningless details.
So, is it safe to say you'd rather this book die?
Yes. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, here's the thing. I did feel like it was a great concept.
It was.
But I felt like the opening section where they give that summary of what's happened. I
Yeah.
was like, I wanted that kind of writing. I didn't want this like. I didn't want to be in love with words. I wanted to enjoy a story.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. This series has definitely hit it out of the park. There's an issue about the character, the Grief Knight, Matt. There's an issue about Chuck, the character who plays the class of Fool, and there's another issue with I think the Godbinder one. And I mean, there's so many really moments that I could point to in past issues, even whole issues, where I was like, this is freaking amazing. And then the last 4 or 5 issues. It's just been like, nope, just gonna pee all over that. Not here for it. Derp-a-derp-a-der. I was like, come on, man, what are you doing to me?
Yep. Well, yeah, it was a tough one for me. I mean, and that's it was actually one of the, like I said, it was one of the themes this week was a lot of meaningless words.
Yeah.
I mean, another one that I thought was interesting, but was a little hard to get to for another reason, was Ninjak.
I didn't get a chance to open that one yet because I'm still working on stuff. My power went out and I had to deal with the thing with my family. But what did I miss in Ninjak?
You know what? This is the first time where I felt like the coloring job on a book, depending on what page you are, looked really great or brought the book so far down that I didn't want to go forward.
Ooh, that's rough.
You know, monochromatic yellow, it just hurts my eyes.
Yeah. Monochromatic yellow hurts his eyes. Got it.
But
Okay.
they're doing interesting things with the color, but they weren't necessarily interesting things that worked with the color.
Got it.
And that's the problem. Story was pretty good. You know, I didn't feel too overwhelmed by too many other elements. I thought the art was amazing. But I almost would have. I almost think it would have been more interesting to see this in black and white than to see it in color. And I recognize that they were experimenting with the color. And I'm not saying the color was all bad, but when it didn't work, it really didn't work, and it was distracting.
Yeah, I've talked to people at Valiant multiple times because they were like, "What is it with the books this work?" I'm like, "I'm not connecting with the characters. I'm connecting with the plots. I'm connecting with the visuals. I'm not connecting with the characters." And that has been across their entire line. Like the characters that I really wanted to vibe with, like Livewire or Faith. Well, no, I'm sorry. Faith was one. Faith, I was able to get into Faith because Faith has an actual life, and you get to
Right.
see she lives an actual life that factors into what she does. Whereas every other book across the line, it's like, no, this is just what I do, and this is what I do all day, and then I go to sleep, but you never see that because nobody wants to buy a comic about that. And I'm
Right.
like, it's really hard to connect, especially conceptually with the idea of, okay, let me get this right. You're a super rich, super spy ninja from England.
Right.
Really? That's what you want me to buy into? Okay, I guess. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, and the other problem with Ninjak is it's such a colonial concept.
Yes.
I mean, and the name says it all.
Are they still? Because they were doing this thing with Ninjak where it was a program. It was the Ninja letter program in England,
Right.
kind of like Weapon Plus, where he was Ninja K, and for him there was Ninja J, and so for me, I was like, so you've got to have like Ninja Z, who's like a jazz musician, and you've got to have like Ninja B, who's a boxer. I mean, I was like, really, you're not even going to just dive into the concept? Really, you're just not going to have any fun at all? And they were like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the jury's out on this one. I would have trouble picking up the next issue if I had to use my own money on it.
Yeah.
But I think there's I do see some possibilities there.
Okay.
What did you think of A Man Among Ye?
Okay, a man among ye. Okay, first of all, a man among ye is the central character Anne, this pirate queen, is one of the most charismatic characters. Definitely I've seen from Top Cow in a lot of years, but on the stands, she lives and she goes hard, she parties hard. She's a complete bro. She's like a complete frat bro, but she's a woman pirate. Which
Right.
set in the time is interesting to see play out. The way that she refuses to fit with the gender norms of the time. I love a lot of that, and she's got an all-woman pirate crew, and that's super innovative, and the way they play that across is interesting. But this particular issue was wake up and oops. That's the entire story. And that's not much of a story, especially when there's a part where she's about to get, I'm going to sort of spoil it, I guess. She's about to get ambushed after they gave her this brand new super sword. If you're going to ambush somebody who's a relentless murderer, you don't give them a super duper new weapon first. That's just bad for business. I was like,
Yeah.
what are we even doing here, man? I mean, I
I
love the
feel
art.
it.
I love the feeling of it. I love the vibe. I mean, even though I'm not really one for period pieces normally, but and I love the character. I like some of the supporting characters. The one that they're supposed to be saving, that like princess or whatever, that's supposed to like be like real pompous. I'm over her because she's a stereotype, and the rest of the crew are so much more empowered and have so much more agency. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think this would probably do better if it wasn't single issues. I actually think this is an original graphic novel. It should not be single issues.
I see where you're coming from, but here, I'm going to tell you the one word that came to my mind after going through this. I can,
Sandwiches.
you know, I can break up. We can break up the plot. We can talk about what was happening with the art, what was happening, and even like the significance of this this all woman cast. You know, but you know what I came out thinking the one word I thought of after this was just fun.
It is fun, yeah.
You know,
It's
and
not
I
Trigger
feel
Keaton fun, but it's fun.
yeah, but this was very much kind of a fun adventure, a fun meat and potatoes adventure comics, with the one twist being that it's an all female crew. I would come back for more on this.
Would you say this is a romp?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and there's definitely room for that. There's definitely room in comics for a romp, and I can see that this is not a book that's going to ask a lot of you. Seven Secrets, for example, asks a lot, and I won't deny that, and it gives a lot in return. This book is
Right.
like, nah, she's got a sword and she's gonna kill some people and she likes sleeping with ladies. Have fun.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, well, okay, that doesn't complicate things too much. Yeah, sure.
Yep. You know, and I thought, and you know what, I gotta like, you know, I actually think that this is the comic that comic companies aren't really making much of anymore.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong, there's also a slant to it, because everything that the character is doing, if it was done by a male character, we'd be like, this is completely misogynistic, this is completely patriarchal, this is completely colonialized, blah, blah, blah. And those things are still true for her. The fact that they've cast it as a woman, I mean, if you're going to cast a woman James Bond, who's also a womanizer, does that make her better? I don't know that it does. That's just my theory, though. I don't know.
I think it does. It does
does?
because subjectivity matters,
Okay.
right? I think that, you know, just like you know, there's certain storylines for white characters. If you put a black character in, would be immediately offensive, right?
Yeah.
And that's because what we don't talk enough about is that identities are stories too.
Okay.
You know, is that you know, and I'll put it simply: to be African American is to have a specific relationship to history, and to carry the and the color of your skin actually pulls up that history being stories that are being reconciled with the present. And so like when you when you gender swap something, I don't think that's necessarily a trite thing to do. And I think that oftentimes, because sometimes people just are like, we'll do it just this, and they don't think about what they're gender swapping, you actually can create even bigger problems. And the same thing with race swapping, right? You know, I mean, you know, like if you're gonna race swap a sidekick character and make the character go from white to black, you can run into a lot of problems.
Do we need
If
to
you look-
discuss Signal? Do we have to do that?
Oh yeah,
Too soon?
we'll save that for later. But
Okay.
but that's I think that they did a good job with Signal because they don't have him following Batman around. He's independent and has agency.
Yep.
But I'm saying if you had done a straight swap of Signal for the Robin of the 1960s,
Ooh.
we would be organizing people to get in planes to fly to Burbank to burn that shit down.
Adam West would not be the same. He would not.
Exactly. And so I think that's something that we don't talk enough about when we have these conversations about race swapping and gender swapping, because everyone's just like, ooh, gender swapping good or bad, ooh, race swapping good or bad, right?
All right.
It's it's not good or bad. It's about the storytelling,
Well
and it's
then,
about what changing identity does to the story.
well then, even there, looking at this is an English woman. She's an English woman. She's white, and she's from a certain background of red hair or whatever, and she has a crew, including a black woman that's on her crew who has her own history with the triangular trade and whatnot. Um, but as I said, she flies into town, she drinks, she traffics in whores, she goes out and she robs people on the sea and takes their stuff. And she's doing all this in the name of protecting this princess character that she's trying to, I don't know, she's actually not even paying attention to her most of the time, so she's not even doing a really good job at that. Um, I believe now that I've listened to you say this, there is room for that, and there's a way to tell those stories. I'm more concerned, even though I saw the fun here, I'm more concerned with it here because she's adopting the behavior of the patriarchs.
Yes, that's definitely there, but here's the thing. She can never be a patriarch, right? Like the fact that she's trying to adopt what the patriarch does actually renders her even more of an outcast and more of a target. That's why the gender swap is interesting, right? Because
Oh, I see what you're doing.
right? See, because she's got a crew, she's got her own crew, but that crew is not looked at the same way. The crew's not looked at the same way.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, her having a black woman on her crew becomes very significant, even more significant because it's an all-woman crew.
Yeah.
Because what because it's alluding to another set of stories. Because all of these characters are seen as being on a liberatory journey.
Okay. Okay. I can see that. It actually reminds me of, and I've brought this up before, of Handmaid's Tale. There's a character named Serena Joy who was the architect in many ways. She wrote a book that very strongly helped Gilead rise to power. And then after that, instead of being gifted with a place of power in that, she was told that she could never read again. And the one day that she tried to
Right.
read, they cut off her freaking finger. So,
Right.
I mean, I get that you'll never be the patriarch, but to me, there's still some challenges and some problematic elements to trying.
Right. But I agree with you. But ultimately, the consequences overshadow the problematic elements and actually highlight how problematic those things are when it's not her. And so that's what I mean by it's like changing the identity changes the story.
Secret layers, I like it. All right. All right. Well, yeah, this is Comic Books This Week, and we're getting deep on identity and gender, and we're making it happen. What's going on? Hopefully, we're not mansplaining it. This is Dr. Stanford Carpenter, who does have some credentials. It's not like he's no slouch. And me, I may be a slouch. I'm the head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool Hannibal Taboo. We just did A Man Among Ye from Top Cow. What else we got going on?
Let's hit Thor Revelations.
Thor. I love Thor. I forgot to read Thor. I've had such a wacky week. What happened in Thor?
I actually kind of like this. Yeah. These are the things. First of all, I thought that I love that they actually had panels, like multiple panels in a row with no words.
Economy.
I I loved how it allowed the art to shine and it allowed the images to tell the story. I thought that was great. I mean, it's dealing with this whole thing of like Thor is now king and he's losing control of his hammer, and he's saying that it's because he's becoming a king and he's no longer a warrior, and Mjolnir was meant to be wielded by a warrior. And so we've got these moments where like he's having trouble lifting the hammer, and then like the hammer like pins him down the ground, and then Loki comes over and just easily picks it up, and it's like what, and he goes out to get help from Steve Rogers, and there's actually a really good precious storytelling moment in here, and I know it's I'm finding it, but it's like it's like, oh, where is it?
Where is it indeed?
Oh, it's great because he finally pulls Captain America's side. You know, and it's this great conversation. So 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Contact? I'm not sure.
And he says, "Oh, we fought against Null and his armies. We faced the Phoenix Force. I'm sorry, I don't." He says, "I don't understand why you're asking." And then Thor says, "Because I don't. I don't remember. I never do. You see, immortality, it comes with a price. A moment for you, a battle, a war, a minute, a day. They are remembered as seconds for me. I remember them as a mortal would recall what he had for breakfast a year ago. It's why I am always so grateful to see you and the others. My perception of time. Each time I return to Midgard to fight by your side, I am always so very glad to see you because you are still alive."
Wow. Okay, that is a dope moment.
And he says, I have lost so many here. I have missed their passing, missed entire lives, entire lifetimes with while I was out playing soldier for my father amongst the realms.
Wow.
And
That's
it's
dope.
just, and then Captain America's like, "Oh my God!" Like and then Captain America comes in and and mentions being frozen in the ice as a singular trauma. He's like, "I can't imagine what it's like for you because you're experiencing that all the time."
Yeah.
I was like, this to me is
That's some grown man storytelling.
but it's sandwiched in a very simple story, right?
Uh-huh.
In other words, they weren't trying to pack everything in. And because they weren't trying to pack everything in, they had a moment to put something like this in there and just drop it.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna go back for that. I like that because what's interesting to me that thematically, there was a book that came out last week from Dark Horse, which was a He-Man book, which was ironically also called Revelation.
Okay.
And it talked about Prince Adam's conundrum of his father telling him there's a reason why there's a king and a hero, and that they're not the same person. That the king has to make decisions the hero shouldn't, and the hero has to make decisions the king shouldn't. And those two things can't go together. So for Thor, who was always intended to be king, who was always intended to ascend to the throne of Midgard, I'm sorry, throne of Asgard rather, and he's never really seemed like he wanted it. In the movies, they played that out in a very logical way. He was like, "I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to let you do it. You're black. You seem to know what you're doing. Go for it. You can be king now." But in the comics, he doesn't have that same agency. He's kind of in the Ragnarok cycle, as they say, stuck in his path to ascend, and that's
Right.
what he's slated to do. So I can see the ennui that would grip him in that regard. That's a very deep story point. I like that.
And like I said, and it was earned.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is I felt like it was really well earned. It was a huge story point, and I can think of some comic writers who would want to make that entire interaction a story.
Yeah.
The fact that that entire interaction is not a story is what makes it even more powerful.
Agreed.
Because it becomes instead of having a story, an adventure, he gave us something really solid to put into character development.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I might have to spend a little more time with Thor. I
Who
mean,
wrote that one?
that's a good question. I was not paying attention to who wrote it.
You're an anthropologist.
I only have so much room in my head.
Order some more headroom for Stanford. Got it. Get that on Amazon. I could look it up myself. I'm sure I do. I've got the whatever review copy or whatever here.
It's Kate's Bandini, so it's Kate's who wrote it.
Huh. Interesting.
It was,
Oh,
I
Donnie
thought-
Cates. Yeah, Donnie
Yeah.
Cates. Donnie Cates, he can if you saw him in God Country, his image book, he really gets this God space in certain ways. So yeah. Donnie Cates he's about that life.
Yeah, I think it's Donnie Cates, Michael Bandini's the artist. It's like I said, this was really solid. This is what a good superhero story can be. And I really appreciate it. But you know what? It still was not my favorite book for this week
Why is that?
because I used to I used to always tell my students. I used to say everything you do, every great thing you do today should suck tomorrow. And the reason is because whatever you produce tomorrow should be so much better, right?
Oh, okay.
And and after reading Eve number 3, I gotta say, Eve 1 and 2 really suck. Like that's the thing. It's like it is like so surpassed 1 and 2, and we know that I loved 1 and 2, right?
You made out with 1 and 2 behind a high school gym. Yeah, I totally remember that.
I mean, some of the things that you and I had talked about as concerns about the book were actually addressed. I feel like Victor Laval has just like his pacing in 1 was good, his pacing in 2 was better, and his pacing in 3 is even better.
Okay.
I love that we are in this apocalyptic space, and we still it's got zombies in it, but it's not a zombie apocalypse. It's got killer robots in it, but it's not a killer robot apocalypse. But they all make sense in this world together. Like I love just watching everything. Every element is doing exactly what makes sense. Like the computer and the robot seemed like they were good. Now they're not so good. But you actually saw the evolution over these three installments, and it makes complete sense. And you're not like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes a character changes and it's like a sudden, oh my god,
Yeah.
you'll be blown away by this. Then other times when
And other times when we're about to wrap up in about 5 minutes. This is Comic Books This Week. Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Taboo. He fades in and out, but he'll be back with something brilliant. There he is.
yeah, I mean, no, I was just saying that what would have been a major twist in a lot of other books are just dealt with as a gradual changing character, and I love that subtlety.
Victor does he does subtlety well. I will say that.
And he does it well, but it's interesting because I feel like he's doing it better. Like I also love Destroyer, but I feel like this book is so much better written than Destroyer.
I agree.
He
And I like
understands.
Destroyer, yeah.
And he understands the medium. I like the little thing, like, last week you were talking about being concerned about, like, why would this scientist put his child in jeopardy, right?
I was.
And then all of a sudden, what happened in this one? We find out, oh, maybe it's not his child, right? Now we find out that there's something else going on with these children, right? And other things are coming together, like this whole thing with the zombie virus. Oh, now I'm starting to see why he would send a child there, because this virus seems to affect people when they get older, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like all of this stuff. Like he's really figured out what the layers are, and he's got an economy of words, which I'm surprised to see from a novelist. Usually when a novelist comes over to comics, it's like the first thing they do is fill the page up with words.
I feel attacked, but go ahead.
No, I mean, you shouldn't feel attacked because
I'm joking.
because the fact that you still exhibit an economy of words means that you are superior.
You're very kind. I'm joking.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, and I think he also does a really good job of there are a lot of elements here, but there's not so far, like, all the elements that he's brought up. There's been some sort of payoff for it.
Yeah, I'm glad to see him making this money. I'm glad to see him getting the shine, and I think this book is definitely a step forward from the horror stuff because it will allow him to reach a larger audience. Not that there's anything wrong with horror. It's just, it can make you seem like one thing when you're actually many other things, and I appreciate that. We have about a minute left. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Taboo. Is there any last books you want to try and nail before we roll out, Stanford?
I saved the best for last.
What's that?
Eve. So I don't have any more to add.
All right, shout it all out.
I want to end on that high note.
I respect that. And next week I will not be dealing with paperwork and I will be able to read more books. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate you joining us. I will be seeing what I can do about having my son edit this video and post it on YouTube for your enjoyment if you are so inclined. And please join us next week at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central, where Stanford is located. And we will definitely talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye.